welcome everyone. First of all, this topic itself is a very, very hot topic in the industry. You go anywhere, we are talking about energy transition, and this is a very, on the global platforms as well, energy transition is something that has been at the core of all the debates, all the discussions. There is a sort of shift that is happening in the way we, get our energy. And I think energy transition is sort of a very, very important aspect in terms of global industrial evolution. It also gives chance to countries or developing countries that have always been or earlier been import dependent. These countries are at the cusp of a change, which can really lead to a massive transformation in how the economies will grow in the future. And I think India has taken this opportunity. We have to try to not miss the bus this time. And for that, I think the government, as well as the industry, has come forward, has adapted to the resources that we have. For instance, we have harnessed into solar energy, into our wind potential, and various other things which we are now discovering as well as accepting. So I would say that, yes, we have come a long way in the last maybe decade, and we have a long way to go as well. We have a target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity target by 2030. Apart from capacity addition, we also have a target to achieve net zero by 2070. We also have targets. We not just have targets, but in fact, we have launched measures to boost domestic manufacturing, whether it is solar or whether it is batteries. We are attempting to become, one of the leaders, in the upcoming technologies. Various other, measures like carbon capture. We are talking also about how SMRs can come into India, the small modular reactors in nuclear energy. We are also talking about green hydrogen, where we have a mission and which is already taking shape. And yes, with that, I will say that here today we have come to discuss, amongst other things, how to take this forward. Are we going into the right direction? How far have we come, and where do we have to go? So let me bring in all the speakers now. First, may I welcome Mr. Manoj Pandey, Vice President, Business Development and Operations, PIL. We also have Anil Kumar Choudhary, Chief General Manager, EESL. We have Mr. Atul Kharate, COO, IndianOil, Adani Ventures. We have Mr. Sehul Bhat, Director, Research, CRISIL Market Intelligence. Welcome all. And let me begin by asking, let me just get in Mr. Bhat here first. Again, in terms of where we have come so far, we've seen policy reforms to get India the advantage of energy transition. How far do you think we have come, and what else do we need at this juncture to make ourselves the leader of energy transition?
I think over the last few years, we have really evolved with regards to focus of government, regulator, nodal agencies, and demand supply stakeholders with regards to focus on sustainability. And I think with virtue of all of these ecosystems that has developed, I think today the market is relatively matured compared to where we were pre-COVID. And hence, I think both the demand supply dynamics as well as the regulatory framework has been helping us to achieve the status so far, and will continue to do so for 2030 targets. Let me first look at some of the policies which have definitely helped us to arrive at the status where we are today. First, it's all about sectoral trust that government and stakeholders put together have ensured over the last few years. If you look at auto, the thrust on EV, if you look at power or the energy transition, the vision of conjunctive targets, and if you look at the oil and gas segment, I think the blending target with which we are working, put together the direction for the segment and sectoral thrust is continuing. The second, along with the asset creation of each of these segments, be it for capacity build-up for EV ecosystem, capacity build-up for solar and wind, and for oil and gas, the blending targets that we have. I think the second element which has been critically emphasized by the government is the backward integration. So when we speak about PLI coming in for enhancing the capability of these upstream segments, I think PV module manufacturing, ACC battery manufacturing, that has been very much supported so far. Third, along with the dynamics of sectors, the company's own target of achieving net zero and the glide path to do so, and the external forces. A classic example here would be CBAM in case of steel, where it will in a way ensure that the dynamics of sustainability targets come into the picture when it comes to the kind of trade dynamics also over a medium to long term. Hence, I think from here on, if we have to achieve the number that we have put together as a vision for 2030, I think a couple of more steps need to be taken. First is with regards to what we look at a carbon market development. Now, in some of the geographies, the development has already evolved, and the kind of growth we have already seen in case of how the demand supply of carbon certificates has come up. We see that as and when we see more traction with regards to polluting industries coming up from a demand side and some of the renewable companies coming up from a supply side, I think the evolution of carbon market will definitely be a right step, which everybody is looking forward to. A second is in one or the other form, I think that green financing thrust has already continued. But when you look at recommendation that the banking institutes that we have done to the regulator and the way in which we see the momentum of all corporates on the wholesale side that we look at in one or the other form, it can be energy efficiency capex, it can be renewable energy capex. We see the thrust on asset creation as well as any efficiency improvement increasing, and hence I think very much the policy enhancement with regards to how the green financing roadmap will play out, that will be a critical thing to look out for. I think the green taxonomy, which finance minister announced in the budget, will obviously play an important role here. The third part is because in some of the segments, we spoke on some of the points like CCUS or green hydrogen in the introduction part. When these new technologies have to be evolved, and when R&D across globe is parallelly happening, I think the biggest risks to entire funding and the capex addition that we are doing is how the evolution of the technology will pan out over the medium to long term. And hence, if we have to enter into some of the new technologies or R&D tie-ups, I think viability gap funding will be a critical point that government will look into it. Definitely in the entire space, I think the trade dynamics will play a key role because like we have seen in case of ALMM or BCD, that is definitely supporting the manufacturing base in India. Lastly, when all of these ecosystem develop and market matures with regards to business model, I think somewhere at state level, so far we spoke of intervention which possibly stakeholder and central agencies can bring in. But I think when the ecosystem develops, definitely the mechanism and rationalization around open access charges and the way in which it works, the way it creates differential business models for players, I think that will be a key monitoring.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bhat. I will welcome Mr. Rahman from Hitachi Energy, who has joined us just some time back. Let me get in Mr. Pandey now. Mr. Pandey, what in terms of infrastructure are you seeing? What kind of changes have come in, in the last few years? Are there any challenges that, the infrastructure in terms of energy transition is facing the sector right now?
So first of all, thank you, Shilpa, for being here, for me being here. So in terms of infrastructure, I would say I would talk more about the natural gas pipeline infrastructure because that is the sector I come from. So over the last decade, if you see it, in the Indian natural gas pipeline infrastructure has grown by around 10,000 kilometers. Currently, we are having an operating pipeline of network around 24,000 kilometers. And another 10,000 kilometers of pipeline is something which is under execution at different stages. There is a significant part of southern India, which is yet to be connected with the pipeline infrastructure, as well as over the last, I would say, and maybe Atul will talk more about that, there have been constant push from the government to bring in more and more CGD infrastructure in the country. Now, but over 100 GAs as of now are the ones which are yet to be connected with the natural gas pipeline infrastructure. So going forward, that sets a stage of robust growth for infrastructure in terms of pipeline as well as the domestic production. If we talk about, there have been increase, and going forward, it is expected that a few more new sources in the country will come on stream. And then our reliance on the LNG also has gone up. So, for example, if you talk about last year, from 74, now it is in mid 80s. So, MMSCMD terms. Now, LNG terminals also, there have been multiple LNG terminals at the West Coast which are under operation, as well as Ennore terminal at the East Coast. And then there are multiple other LNG terminals which are expected to come on stream in near future. So going forward with looking at the demand side, natural gas is one fuel that is expected to, in fact, it is kind of being looked at as a bridge fuel between the traditional fuel, like when we transition from fuel like coal going towards net zero and adoption of cleaner fuel. This will act as a bridge fuel, and it is expected to not only coexist but play a significant part in terms of energy transition going forward. So in that context, I would say that infrastructure per se, the infrastructure is going to increase, and maybe all the stakeholders in the infrastructure field here have been either modernizing or expanding their overall network going forward. The government policy push in terms of increasing, whether setting target from the current around 6% to around 15% by 2030 is a positive push which is coming from the government, along with the regulatory frameworks which are now getting aligned in terms of either access to the infrastructure or in terms of setting up unified tariff regime. So all that is expected to play a positive push towards more and more natural gas getting into the overall energy basket, as well as more and more infrastructure getting created in the future.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Pandey. Yes, of course, more role to be played by nat gas in the future, as in line with what the government also thinks. Coming to Atul, taking forward from where Mr. Pandey left, he was talking about the issues down south in terms of connectivity. What exactly is the position now, and how can we actually get that bridge towards the south as well? And how do you think these policies are shaping up, and how, as a company, you are being able to take the advantage of energy transition?
Yeah. So taking lead from what contest you set it, Shilpa, and then what Sehul has added, and Manoj explained in terms of what we have in terms of pipeline infrastructure today. Just to start with, if we go through the overview of energy scenario in the country, so we are the second largest in terms of the energy demand today. We are the third largest crude importer. We are the third largest crude refiner. We are a country which is dependent on 85% of the import of petroleum product, gases, and other energy sources. The petroleum product in the countries are growing at the rate of 3 to 4%. The LPG demand post 2020 has grown by almost 3 to 4%. The electricity demand is very huge. Even the traditional fuel like coal is growing at the rate of 6 to 7%. So what does it mean? It clearly indicates that there is a huge demand our country need in next decades, and we are going to remain those global leading position in the coming sizable number of years. On the other hand, Indian economy, you see, is growing at very smooth rate. We are always close to 6.5 plus, and it's also predicted that Indian economy will be very stable, which will be in between 6.5% to 7.5%. In spite of having a global war situations at two fronts, we are one of the most stable economy, which I can say. And there is a direct correlation between the energy demand of the country and growth of infrastructure and the development in the country. So when we talked about the basic infrastructural requirement, when we talked about, say, gas, we are 50% importing natural gas. So we need an storages, we need an seashore-based infrastructure, which really add value to natural gas. And then the companies like PIPL, the oil marketing companies, the Reliance, so they will be adding value in terms of growing the secondary network. So one basic requirement in terms of the gas infrastructure spreading, and it can be a scenario for LPG as well. There are still certain pockets in the country, more typically the eastern coast, where I can see an opportunity for growth of LPG as well. Okay. When we talked about petroleum product, although we have already started our journey towards renewable energy in terms of solar, in terms of green hydrogens, etc., but the incremental demand of the country itself is so high. In this case, then we need to continue whatever the traditional resources we are having. Even the coal usage in the country, the consumption of coal has increased at 7 to 8%. That means coal is also going to play a very vital role in the coming years. Currently, the current electricity generation is largely dependent on coal. And we are a developing country. We are not a developed country. So we have to see that fine balance between the infrastructural requirement, the aspiration of the country. So that is why I have my own feeling that we need to continue our effort towards all forms of energy in terms of having an infrastructure developed, and the secondary resources need to play their role. When we talked about the alternate energy, if I have to cover one of the segment like green hydrogen, so we started a scheme like Satat, sustainable and affordable transportation related support scheme from Government of India by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So under that scheme, as on date, 72 CBG plants are operational, up and running, and another around 200 plants are under various stages of construction. And there are about more than 2,200 numbers of serious LOIs available with the government, which we expect that it will get materialized in next 4 to 5 years of span. So in the whole energy pie, the contribution of gas is at the level of say 6.8%. And Government of India is having a very clear-cut vision to grow that percentage of gas in the energy pie to a 15%, which clearly indicate that there will be a huge scope for companies with green hydrogen, companies with natural gas, and companies with new and alternative energies, including the ammonia, methanol, and hydrogen in the coming years. So maybe some part of the renewable hydrogen, we can cover it in the next Q&A part.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Atul. It's a very comprehensive view of how energy security is playing a role. And with India's power demand growing almost 10% year on year, I think there is sort of room to grow for all kinds of sources and that we have, and use all resources that we have. So coming to Anil, if I may ask you, from your point of view, demand has been growing at a, especially for electricity consumption, the demand has been growing at a very exponential rate. In fact, we are in a neck-to-neck situation in the summer months. So what, according to you, should we be doing in terms of energy efficiency? We have heard in various corners people and experts talking about how demand side control could be one of the options. What, according to you, is the way forward from an energy efficiency point of view?
Thank you, Shilpa, for the pertinent question at the pertinent time. We just now we have heard from Sehul also, Manoj also, and Atul also, that we have various ways and means to produce energy, because India's energy demand is growing. So will we keep on producing energy? So if it is like that, so we will, if we will keep on producing energy, so this is not the end actually. What I will tell you some comparative figures. India's per capita energy consumption is 1/3 of world's average per capita energy consumption. Average. And so if we want to become world's average also, our energy demand requirement will be 3 times what we have to, what is our demand today. So we will be needing 3 times of energy. And if you talk about the developed countries, so let's say USA. USA's per capita energy consumption is 13 times of what India has. So if you are thinking of which we inevitably we will be going, because as our economy is growing, so we will like any developed country. So our energy demand will be 13 times what we have. So we, by any scenario, by any other method, are we going to achieve this kind of energy requirement by supply side management? And and then what is the impact in the environment also? So that is the so that is where the another source of energy comes into the play, which is energy efficiency. This is an alternate source of energy, which is energy efficiency that comes into the play. So energy efficiency is inevitable, and so that is why we have to find various kinds of ways and means where our daily appliances, our energy system, transportation systems, domestic system, agriculture system, industrial energy, everything become more and more efficient for to become the 3 times to become world's average. So that 3 times more efficient, 13 times more efficient to become like a developed country. So that is the potential in India, and that is where we come into the picture. And this, when we are going to implement this kind of energy efficiencies model, and it needs potential and investments. So investments is required. So investments are required in newer technology and newer appliances, newer thing. For example, we have done. Everybody is aware of LED lights, LED lights. When GLS bulbs were there, LED lights were brought in 100 watt versus 9 watt. So that kind of, so what EESL does actually, EESL is doing identifying newer technologies, and which is already proven, not that experiment, already proven technologies which are already prevalent in the world, and then piloting it in an Indian scenario. And then after piloting, specifications are frozen, and then we invite all the stakeholders, all the manufacturers, OEMs, to produce it, which they start producing, because we aggregate the demand, and then they see the demand and then start producing it. In the process, in the manufacturers which were hesitant to produce those products now are manufacturing it, because they are seeing the pipeline. So in the process, India adopts those technology, and India starts manufacturing it. So that's the way we are enhancing energy efficiency portfolio in entire India.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Anil. I'll come back to you on that, on energy efficiency a little more. But let me bring in Mr. Rahman. Welcome, sir. We are actually talking about, how the energy demand and how it leaves room for all kind of sources to grow within the country. From your company's point of view, what is the future going to be like? Are we on the right path of achieving 500 gigawatt? Or are we going to overdo it, where we might see, or where there is a risk of, sort of negative pricing that may come up in renewable energy, or whether it is balanced? What kind of a situation do you see right now?
Yeah, so coming to, I think, the achievement of 500 gigawatts by 2030 in terms of the generation capacity, the renewable generation capacity, I don't think there is a challenge there, because government has a lot of plans, initiatives, programs, and at the same time, a lot of private sectors, they also have their plan to have tens of gigawatts and even hundreds of gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. And on the load side, definitely we see that with the economic growth, We'll also have the loads, and especially a lot of loads, they are getting electrified. For example, EV, electric vehicle. So that's also there. So both sides, I think, are a bit challenging for us. Is that how do we deliver this renewable energy over long distances? Because we know that we have, for example, we are setting up large solar, wind power generation in Himalayas, for example, Leh, Ladakh, and that energy has to be delivered to the grid, to the load centers, for example, north of India, Haryana, NCR region. So it's a long distance transmission. So how do we set up the transmission line so that once the power plant is set up and the power is evacuated and delivered to the load center, to the grid. Similarly, in the deserts of Rajasthan, so huge potential, lot of power plants coming up, renewable, again evacuating and delivering those power over hundreds and sometimes 500,000 kilometers away. And similarly, Kutch, for example, yeah, we call it wet desert. So there again, huge potential, lot of plan to also set up solar, wind there, and also offshore wind. So in short, what's going to happen is also that on the transmission side, the grid side, the capacity expansion has to also be in tandem, because setting up a renewable power plant may be a lesser time cycle event, but setting up a long transmission line with the right technology, that takes more time. So that we need to have that synchronization. So the second thing is also, while we have a lot of renewable energy, especially the solar coming up, the grid is going to be losing inertia in the system, which actually, with the rotating mass, with the rotating generators earlier, with the thermal, gas, and hydroelectric rotating generators, they were providing inherent inertia to the system. So whenever there is a large sort of imbalance of power, load, and the generation, so they will automatically slow down in terms of the input, the fuel input, or speed up, and then the system was coming back to the normal with the stable state. But with the solar, so there is no rotating mass, so it's fixed. It depends on the sun, it depends on the cloud. So the grid is going to face that problem of losing inertia. But there are solutions, technology solutions. As Hitachi Energy also, we have these solutions for both long distance transmission and having this controllability, having this inertia. We have technologies like high voltage DC technology based on the power electronics technology, so which can reduce the voltage drop, it can reduce the footprint for the transmission line, it can reduce also the losses. At the same time, it can provide controllability of power through the line, and it also provides the virtual inertia with something called STATCOM, we call it the technology. So with that, it can also provide virtual inertia to the system so that the system can be stable while there are large imbalances of power. I think using this, so we are seeing that, from 90s, we as Hitachi Energy and also ABB earlier, we have been setting up the large HVDC transmission lines, over 1700, 1800 kilometers. The evacuation of power, for example, from northeast to Agra, to the center of the country, and also Raigad Pugalur, which is a recent one where from Tamil Nadu, excess wind power in renewable power also can be fed back to the center of the country, Chhattisgarh, Raigad area. So that's how the entire grid is supporting that more and more this remote renewable generation.
So I think
they need this type of technology by which the grid can be stable at the same time.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Rahman.
So that way, I think we have challenges, but we also have the solutions. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. We did lose you a little in between, but I think we did get your message.
Hope you could.
Transmission is, and evacuation is something that has become, a topic in the renewable energy segment, and we'll definitely come to that. But let me get back to Sehul. Sehul, we've been talking about these energy projects, and you mentioned green financing trust. Let me just get to you that take it to you that we have heard about how finance is not an issue for the renewable energy industry in India. But the point is that do we have finance at the rates that we need to become competitive? And what do you think should the industry be taking forth to the government, if there are any issues in sort of getting investments or any other thing?
Sure. We had done a detailed assessment of looking at how asset creation will pan out over the next 5 years on generation, transmission, and distribution side. And we have an estimate that close to 25 lakh crore of funding will be required. Put together will be the investment that will go into the power sector when it comes to asset creation between 25 fiscal to 2029. Almost 75% of this quantum will be required for the generation side because of the capacity addition that we will need for non-fossil segment addition. Almost 10 to 15% will be required on the transmission side, and the rest of 10-15% will be on the distribution side. What is important to look at is, one, the stakeholders who are going to invest in these services. Now, when it comes to the investment essentially on the transmission and distribution, we also see a good share, in fact, large share coming in from center and state entities. But the larger share of investments, which is the generation part, we see that the contribution of private sector is going to be very, very strong when it comes to addition of capacities for solar, wind, and the other non-fossil capacities. The option that today is available to a large corporate group or larger set of companies is not only a traditional mode of funding. And hence, I think the question is not only about availability of formal credit or cost at which it is available, it is also about avenues through which they are raising the fund. Now, traditionally, if you look at the kind of avenues that was available, it was a traditional infrastructure lending that used to happen for the conventional capacity generation for thermal plants. Today, if you look at the options available to large corporate, it's not only a traditional bank market or the bank lending, but it's also the kind of bond market or ECB or the foreign bond issuances that they can do. The second part is that parallel to the government's vision of a Panchamrit target and 2070 net zero ambition, I think the budgetary allocation and accordingly the action from all the power finance agencies, be it PSC, IC or IRDA, has been very much aligned to the goal of sustainable target and renewable focus. So we are also seeing a good traction with regards to not just the bond issuances, ECBs contributing to the overall funding requirement here, but I think the NBFCs and the infra financing entities also significantly contributing here. Third, if you look at the kind of view and the trajectory at which the sanctioning or the view on the private sector and public sector banks is concerned, I think all of them are looking forward to a significant lending towards the green energy projects. This also is imperative to be seen in the view that a regulator has been very much indicative of the fact that the environmental risk also needs to be parallelly assessed along with business and financial parameters. So I think that's why the green finance or the project on the renewable side becomes very, very critical part of the overall lending space. Two more avenues of funding, which traditionally were not observed in the past, but we see that trend continuing and also going up is, one, as and when these assets mature, a good share of them will also help developers deleverage through asset monetization option. So with the fact that InvIT structure is very much evolved now, and some of these projects, the ones which were operational for last few years, where they have a kind of stability of operational parameters and the kind of right pricing which is required for that monetization plan, I think then the asset monetization will definitely play a critical role when it comes to adding equity contribution from the developer side for the next set of funding. Second, from an equity side, again, we are seeing a good traction when the private equity or the fund house investments into the greenification or green projects come in. So it's not only about domestic players, but also foreign funds which are deploying equity infusion into some of the companies. So I think that's how we see not just the element of focus on cost of finance, but the entire avenue or channel of finance also enlarging significantly.
Yes, thank you, Sehul. Of course, we have sort of been hearing about innovative ideas when it comes to financing, and there's a lot of avenues for blended finance also now coming into the sector. However, I'll come to you. I'll go to Atul now. Atul, from your company point of view, how important is it and how imperative it has become to switch or to transition from towards green? And if I may ask you, what are the the projects that you have sort of initiated now from your traditional to going towards green? Biogas is something that I have also personally been interested in. So what kind of say initiatives, second policy support that you have gotten so far in these avenues?
Thank you, Shilpa. So the venture which I represent, it's IndianOil Adani Ventures Limited. So IndianOil, we know IndianOil is one of the largest oil marketing company, and the other partner is Adani Ports and SEZ, having a larger presence in ports, infrastructure, airports, defense, and the retail chain of the country. Okay. Talking about IndianOil, IndianOil has taken a green and alternative initiative as a very visionary thoughts about a decades ago. Okay. And today, proudly, I can say in the gas segment, we have a largest infrastructure, and in terms of the green power purchase, we have a larger tie-ups in the country. Very recently, under the Satat scheme, IndianOil is one of the largest oil marketing company. And as on date, I can say under this venture, as in Satat initiative, around 72 plants are operational. And around 2,200 LOIs across all oil marketing companies are shortlisted. It is expected that 5,000 such number of plant we need to build it in the country in next couple of years. Earlier, it was intended for 2025, but now I have my own personal assessment that we may need another 4-5 years. So by 2030, we are targeting around 5,000 number of CBG plants. Under the same venture, if I have to first talk about, we have the country's first waste to energy and Satat plant. In fact, coincidentally, I am sitting at Namakkal in Tamil Nadu today, and I am part of this event. So this is the first plant of the country which is generating electricity from waste to energy. And to that expansion, we have also put a CBG generation plant. And we have electricity generation, that is green electricity. We have compressed biogas generation to a capacity of 10 ton per day. We are serving to many industrial and commercial customer from this plant. And we also have a biomanure. So that is also one of the revenue stream, and it's a need of the country today. When we talked about ESG, that biomanure is also one of the value-added product. So all these three activities, we are doing it from this plant of Namakkal, and we have plan in place in terms of expanding this model in the other part of country. When I talked about IOC, IOC is having plan in place to put about 30 such plants, and Adani as a group company is having 4 such plants running in various states of the country. And we have a plan to build municipal solid waste generation plant at a couple of cities in Gujarat as well as the other part of the country. Talking about the potential, as I said in my earlier contest, if we have to really increase the percentage of gas, which is currently 6.8%, the raw material availability in the country in terms of agri-waste, municipal solid waste, and industrial waste, that is to the tune of 700 to 750 MMTPA. And from that 700 plus MMTPA, we can easily generate 65 plus MMTPA of gas. And into phase 1, as a nation, we are just targeting 15 MMTPA. So that clearly indicates that there is a huge potential to grow, for people to invest, for people to come forward and really being part of the journey. Be it may be a EPC companies, be it may be a financial companies, be it may be a banking and commercial representatives, or the MNC companies, those are interested to invest in India and really add value in terms of technology. So that type of potential I can see for the green energies in the country.
Absolutely. Thank you, Atul. I'll quickly come to Manoj. Manoj, just based on the project that you are executing, what what we've heard for such large projects, or what we've seen is our legacy issues. Like, of course, land acquisition is one of the things. Then there are other sort of permissions that you need. What is the difference that you have seen in terms of ease of doing business? And despite what are the challenges faced, in projects which are as large as yours?
So Shilpa, you rightly pointed out one of the pain point of the industry has been the pipeline infrastructure companies has been the acquisition of right of use, because unlike other traditional plant located at one single location, now pipelines travels cross country, and for which a right of use needs to be acquired, not permanent land acquisition, but it is right of use, because most of the pipeline is buried under the ground. Now we have in the country Pipeline and Mineral Pipeline Act, under which the ROU belonging to the private as well as government agencies is acquired under that act. But the process of acquisition has been traditionally, you can say, the cumbersome as well as time taking. And this has been actually from time and again, different participants in this sector have pointed out this. And also there has been discussions with the government and regulator to have a mechanism of single window clearance, either for the statutory part, statutory clearances part, as well as for ROU part, because of course, when you create more and more pipelines across the country, probably it will be prudent to have a common corridor located along either because we have been talking about development of more roads, which also need permanent land acquisition. So along with that, if pipelines can be laid going forward, then probably that will be a positive side. So far, there has not been any, I would say, there have been discussions, but a clear-cut policy needs to be formed on that. The second part is statutory clearances, because to lay the pipeline cross country, you need state agencies. There are state agencies from whom you need to acquire clearances. Similarly, central agencies, then local authorities as well. Now, again, discussions have been going on in terms of forming a single window clearance mechanism, where either at state level or at central level, for all these clearances required can be taken through single authority, not only at the time of execution of the project, but during the operations phase as well. There have been instances, and in fact we have been facing the encroachment along the pipeline. Now, being a high pressure hydrocarbon pipeline, these pipelines are something where encroachment can lead not only in terms of hydrocarbon losses, but also endanger the public located along the pipeline. So for that purpose, to have a clear guidelines as well as to remedy such kind of encroachment, there needs to be a policy in place, and that we have faced in the past under the project execution phase, as well as under the operating stage. The second part,
yes,
I
of
would...
course. Sorry, please go on.
Yeah. The second part is, if you see, because most of the sources when you talk about and major anchor load customers, those are probably currently in the country are either connected or in the process of getting connected. Government and regulator have taken a step in terms of at least creating a primary arterial network across country called National Gas Grid, which is there in the place. And as I talked about earlier, it's only the southern part of the country which needs to be integrated going forward. Now, as we reach out to far-flung areas, there probably anchor customers may not be there when you start connecting and laying the branch pipelines. So for those particular part, I think Sehul talked about kind of viability gap funding in of course in different sectors. But I think in this particular sector also we would need going forward some sort of viability gap funding, as well as, and which will also basically encourage private participation as well as FDIs, because as of now, if you talk about the midstream transportation segment, most of the networks are basically owned by the PSUs. Okay, and we are the single largest and probably the only pure transmission company from the private sector which is operating in the country. But going forward, I think it will be something which will encourage other private investors as well as operators from different groups to come forward and lay the infrastructure.
Sure.
The
Thank you,
third part is that on our own, of course, Atul talked about that CBG and a bit part as to hydrogen, green hydrogen. So taking a cue from because that is something which is going to be future in terms of renewable basket. If you talk about green hydrogen, has been talked about for quite some time, and but all the discussions have been actually oriented around the production of hydrogen. But going forward, I think a holistic look would need to be taken, wherein not only production, but in terms of reaching the required places, the transportation also would need to be efficient, as well as will need to be included as part of overall policy gamut. On the technical front, we have been working with few of the technology companies as well as the players who have actually worked in this area. And in terms of feasibility of transporting hydrogen through the pipelines and either through blending or in terms of repurposing the pipeline in future, because going forward when actually hydrogen starts getting produced, then either in blended form or in terms of repurposement of the pipelines which are severely underutilized going forward, probably that can be converted rather than laying an entirely new hydrogen pipeline networks across country, because that will be something which will be much more expensive compared to repurposing. So what we have seen that up to 10% blending, that can be done with some minor modification in the transportation network. But going beyond that, then it will require huge investment. And as I said, a visibility on investments and how the returns are there, probably there will be more private investments which will be there in this sector.
Sure. Thank you. That is very interesting, actually, the transport of green hydrogen and what you mentioned about, converting those pipelines. I'll just come to Mr. Rahman because I think he's in a, sort of a conference. So we'll just finish it off with you, sir. Just wanted to ask, you mentioned last about transmission. It's very interesting that we've come at a stage where we see that while we have renewable energy capacities that are under development, but obviously transmission is something which was anticipated that might not come around the same time as the renewable energy capacities are being added. Evacuation is becoming an issue. What according to you could be the solution here? While the government is working, they have plans to put on they're coming with innovative plans. We're hearing about some HVAC lines also around 1200 kilowatt, kV, which are sort of, also under discussion. But like, where are we when it comes to that? And what are the challenges when with regards to the target that we have set for ourselves?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, so transmission capacity enhancement in terms of new lines, whether it is HVDC line or HVAC line. So we are talking about 1,000 kilometers of the corridor where you have to have the right of way, you have to reduce the footprint, you have to have laying of these lines, and that takes time. That the cycle time is more there. But at the same time, just having a AC line may not be sufficient because we are adding the intermittent renewable energy and solar energy where the inertia is less. So then, which is the right technology to use? HVDC, of course, definitely preferable, but it's definitely more expensive than the AC. But at the same time, it can provide more So I think this techno-economic analysis also has to be done. It is being done, and that's why we are seeing more and more HVDC interconnections coming up from long distances. With this new technology and that asset monetization, so where we need also performance management, operation performance management project, once it is set up, the build, and then you can monetize the capex into the opex, and then the funding also can be linked to that. I think it's definitely a very interesting time for technology as well as business model innovation in this space. And I'm sure we can do that, achieve that in the country because with the government support and also a lot of private support. And the other aspect is also we have to look at sector coupled energy network. So we talked about the hydrogen transportation. So whether we should have the electrolyzer plant near the source of energy, renewable energy, and then you transport the hydrogen, or you produce renewable energy, transmit that through electricity transmission line, and at the destination, at the receiving end, you have the electrolyzer plant. I think that also analysis has to be done. So one is like whether you transport the electrons or you transport the molecules. I think they're very interesting. So somewhere we have to have a sort of a balanced approach, and at the same time also having the storage of energy.
Sure.
Whether
Yes,
it is the sending and receiving and in between. So that these are interesting things to be considered, and technology is there. So
I was actually going to come to that, when it comes to storage. I'll just shoot a couple of short questions and really concise answers to them because we're running short of time. But one about storage, there are FDRE projects that are coming in, which are getting some good traction, when it comes to tenders by the renewable energy implementing agencies. What do you think is the future of storage and the storage related costs? That's one. Second, you mentioned about, second, I would like to know is that in terms of modules and solar modules availability as well as cells availability, where are we currently, at this point in time?
I think the energy storage is going to evolve in terms of technologies, whether it is battery energy storage. That's one. And again, in the battery energy storage, different type of batteries and also second life batteries. So that way also it will be more of a techno-economic kind of cost benefit analysis to be done because the battery technology is going to change. And also the business model, for example, battery as a service, storage as a service. So these kind of models evolve. That's one. But the second thing is also a little bit longer term storage. We know that we are using the pump storage, so that's going to be there. It has been there since. So it's a combination of battery energy storage, pumped storage, as well as the hydrogen fuel cell based storage. So these three will be evolving in future in conjunction. It's not just one technology, one or other, one battery technology, other battery technology, but also combination of hydrogen, pump storage, and the battery energy storage, they will evolve. And that way the cost dynamics also will change. and of course with the asset monetization, and also it has to be taken as an integrated cost, not just the renewable energy generation, but renewable energy plus the storage together. That has to be modeled in terms of the net energy cost, including the availability, RTC, storage of energy. I think that's going to be an interesting thing, and of course over a period of time the cost will definitely come down, storage cost. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Rahman. It was, it's a pleasure. I might come back to you if you're still around. But let me.
I'll be here. Yeah.
Sure. Let me go to Anil. Anil, while talking about, we spoke about energy efficiency, but you've had a lot of programs. Solar induction cooking is one of them, right? But in terms of adoption, we're still seeing a bit of struggle there. How do you plan on getting these, efficient, products into the market? How do we look at the adoption, from a consumer point of view, especially in the non-urban areas?
You are talking about all the appliances or for the solar induction?
Induction mostly, but of course we're also talking about efficient air conditioners as well, and maybe some other products. Some products have seen a lot of adoption, but it's these big changes that require a lot of push from the government side and education from the government side to the consumers.
Yes. So actually, our model works on identifying the technology, demand aggregation, and bringing the cost down, and then adoption. So that is the thing which happens, and it has happened in LED street lights, LED bulbs, brushless DC fan, which conventional has a 75 watts power consumption, and in these brushless DC fans has 28 watts power consumption. So these are getting adopted very fast. And then this in the motor sector, the IE3 motors we have brought in when industry is reeling with the IE1 and below. And India has mandated for IE2 motors. And we have brought in IE3 motors at the cost of IE2 motors. So India has transitioned from IE1 or less than that to IE3 without going to IE2 because of these EESL's interventions and all those. So, and there's a similar interventions have been in their agriculture pumps also, and municipal pumps. And coming to solar induction, so actually there are two things in that. This is an induction cooktop, which is a very clean way of cooking. So and it is a energy transition sort of thing. So here one technology is the cooking fuel is now getting changed in induction cooktop basically. So there's a clean technology and more safe also. So that is the benefits which we are getting, and cost effectively, if the electricity price is around 9 to 10 rupees per unit, so it's at par, you can say. And if it is less than 6, definitely it's cost effective. And so that, and if we are operating this induction cooktop at 1000 watts, then the time is also the same. If you are getting it, the good thing with induction cooktop that you can go up to 2000 kilowatt also. So then the time will be lesser. So that you will be saving the time also. That is the advantage of adoption of induction cooktop. And when it comes to solar, then you see that solar, this 2000 this kilowatt of this 2 kilowatt of power is to be given to per induction cooktop. So it requires a solar panel of a considerable size. So that becomes a challenge then, and that's it becomes and cost comes into the picture for the solar power. And then solar power is available during the daytime only. And then for the night cooking, you need storage of the power. So battery comes into the picture. So these builds up the cost, and there that is where the challenges come. So when we aggregate the demand, bring down the cost, and various technologies will come in to push for the renewables will be there. Then only the adoption will start getting faster. And then carbon credits are also to be brought in, because independently sustaining with the bringing down the OEM costs and these kinds of things, may not work in the initially carbon credits are also to be brought in, and then this carbon credit monitoring becomes itself a difficult challenge. That when carbon credit monitoring is done, then users are to be monitored whether they are literally using it. Then behavioral changes are required, because we are in urban areas we are used to for the PNG gas or LPG whatever, and then in the rural where the grid connectivity is not there, it's a very good option, but they are already used to this biofuels and all those things, which are not even clean. So that behavioral changes are required. So these are the challenges while we are aiming for adoption of solar induction cooktop.
Yeah. Well, we do hope that really works.
Yeah. Then
Coming,
various things for the air conditioning also. If time is there, I can say about that also. Because
yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back with 2 minutes for all. We just need
Yeah,
to finish this first
Sure,
this
sure,
round
sure,
of
sure.
questions. Atul, I'm coming to you. We spoke of green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is definitely, for the last 1.5 years, since the mission was launched, we've really talked about it. One of the issues that also Manoj also talked about is the transport, where of the fuel, which we are sort of bringing in ideas. In fact, we heard the Central Electricity Authority talk about the same thing as to whether we can, which Mr. Rahman also talked about, whether we can transport hydrogen itself in its or its derivative from one place to another within the country, or we can actually do the renewable energy transmission. So we sort of have options to choose from, though it's not viable yet. What do you think of, we see that green hydrogen has an offtake problem right now. You rightly mentioned earlier as well about, while we have, we're working on supplies. I think Mr. Pandey talked about it. We're working on the supplies side, but of course the demand side is still something that a lot of developers are also sort of skeptical, and where things are not moving ahead. So what is your opinion on the green hydrogen front, whether it is transport or whether it is the demand side push?
The most important today, your site has to have a suitability for the supply chain management of raw material. Okay. The whole scheme is interlinked with the waste, which is coming from agri, which is coming from industry, or which is coming from the cities as a municipal solid waste activity. So your site has to have a suitability for the supply chain management. Second, when it comes to a large scale commercial or scaling it up to a commercial level, you have to have a huge storages, and you have to have a mechanism. How can you basically store it safely? How can you use it more effectively for the larger span of time? Okay, so typically in the northern region, the agri season is like a very short span of couple of weeks. Within those couple of weeks, you have to gather a material in such a quantum that you have to run it for next 11 months. So for that purpose, you need all type of resources in terms of mechanized equipment, and those equipment as on date, we don't have those setup available locally. So it has to be imported, and it is coming with very high capital cost investment. So very recently, the central government has come with the scheme of CFA for those equipment as well. So something is moving in that direction. The next part in terms of challenge is technology. So we have a couple of technologies available for CBG or green hydrogen purification. We have indigenous engineering. We did it for initial few of the project. However, now we understand that Indian situations are quite different than the European situation. So if you just try to cut and copy the technology, it is not going to help us. So we have to have R&D. We have to have engagement of technology centers and various expert department, including our IITs in the whole process, which really add value what we are looking for as an Indian operating system. Okay. because our waste segregation practices are quite different than Europe and other part of the world. That is how there is a large amount of wastage, handling challenges, the higher cost involved, etc. is happening. The third part is basically a very strong policy and framework support required by Government of India through their various departments. Nowadays, a very typical example, if a CBG plant operator, if he has to set up his plant, he has to obtain the clearances, initial licenses from couple of departments. Like there is a petroleum department engaged for subsidiary, he has to go to Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. If there is a support required for production and sale of manure, he has to follow Ministry of Agriculture. Somewhere there is also involvement of Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer. So these are the couple of ministries which he has to deal with. Okay. So when we talked about ethanol as one of the success model in India, we need to learn from this. This is how we as an industry is always trying to impress upon. If we have to really grow in the green hydrogen segment, we need to learn from our own best practices. Plus, there are proven practices across the globe. India has played a very important role in GBA, and we have that type of expertise available in the country. And the world is coming forward to support us. So we need to use those global practices in terms of their research, their technology, and the best practices which they have adopted. So if the policies and framework will be a supportive towards the industry, that will really add value for the investors to put in money. And again, a lot of issues related to banking, finance, collateral related issues. Those are challenged today. Even Sehul has talked about it for the matured market, that is more an electricity generation and transmission activities. But for the green hydrogen, etc., it's still a challenge. Okay. So those things can happen if there is a better framework and support and policies which has been designed and defined and which are easy to implement. It has to happen in consultation with the industry.
Sure, absolutely, Atul. In fact, I do agree. There are many challenges actually with the green hydrogen side as well. Although, of course, there is a huge push and things are happening on ground, but there's definitely a room for a lot of discussions. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for all those questions. But yeah, we'll surely perhaps get back to you some other time on the entire scenario of green hydrogen. Coming to Sehul. Sehul, I just would like to have your viewpoint very concisely on, because this is the last leg of rounds that we'll be doing, on whatever points you want to touch, but I would specifically request you to talk about private sector investment in energy transition. You've spoken about it, but we saw that the economic survey also this time talked about how private sector investment needs to pour in into the energy transition segment. And while with the government having done a lot in the sector already. Now, and second is, I would like to know your opinion on increasing cost in this overall power generation or energy transition, especially with regards to equipment. Right of way is one thing that we've been talking about. So how do you see these shaping up, considering the fact that India is still a very price sensitive market when it comes to energy?
So let me divide this into three aspects. One, from an overall investment point of view, as I mentioned in the previous point, I think we look at overall power sector investment to the tune of rupees 25 lakh crore over a 5-year period between 25 to 29 fiscals. Large part of the generation capacity addition will be done by private sector, and hence we see private sector capex very much aggressively coming into the picture. We also need to look at it the way in which dynamics are changing. The end user industries are looking at it from a completely different lens when it comes to adoption of energy on a green side. For example, if you look at a scenario of a large corporate house or the conglomerates where they do not have only a particular business, but the entire value chain to explore. For them, not just the addition of capacity, but the entire backward integration will be a key focus. Hence, if you look at key names in the industry, it's not only about their expansion plans towards solar wind generation, but also to look at how they go back in terms of model manufacturing and so on for the value addition as far as the entire value chain is concerned. The second aspect is the mid-sized corporate and the CNI consumers will completely depend on the way in which business models are evaluating. For example, today, given that solar wind from a plain vanilla point of view have matured, and hence everybody is talking about some of the innovative business models. Now, I mean, the demand today will be more of a peak demand, RTC, hybrid mode, and FDRE, and so on, right? Now, when these models are to be explored, obviously that means the kind of investment which will be required not only on the conventional segments like solar and wind, but as one of the panel members rightly mentioned, eventually the ecosystem of some of the storage element and new technology will also come into the picture. Now, in-house, we have a view that when we look at entire energy transition modeling and the way in which it will pan out over the next 5 to 10 years period, gradually the share of conventional capacity is going to reduce. In our view, so far the conventional capacity in FY24 was somewhere around 57% in terms of capacity share. We see that going down to 35 to 40%. But interesting to know that given the fact that the PLF between non-fossil and fossil have a significant variation. Now, typically, a solar plant will have a PLF of 20% or so, vis-a-vis a coal will be somewhere around 60% plus. So, despite the share of capacity, conventional fuel in terms of capacity reducing, the share in terms of a generation of coal is going to be still a significant one. In fact, in our view, while in fiscal 24, somewhere the coal was somewhere around 73% in terms of generation, we see that continuing upwards of 50% by fiscal 29 also, which critically means that when the dependency on coal is going to continue. Second, when I look at peak demand, which is also a very critical angle when it comes to demand supply gap, because if you look at trend in the market, not only the months, the consumption pattern is changing, but the time of the day is also significantly varying. Hence, when the entire ecosystem of non-fossil fuel develops, the reserve margin will be very, very critical component of the ecosystem, which eventually puts focus on the battery storage system and the other technology aspects. Lastly, if I look at it more from an investment point of view, today, any consumer side, be it refinery industry or steel, cement or auto company or oil and gas company, whenever they are putting capex, 5 years back, 10 years back, a capex into the industry was essentially to look at capacity addition. But today, the capex has a different interpretation. Capex could be for capacity addition, capex could be for efficiency improvement, or capex could be for renewable energy replacement also. I mean, replacement of conventional energy to the renewable captive plant as well. So when you look at capex from steel and cement industry, I think we continue to see focus towards energy efficiency, alternate fuel, renewable energy, and obviously on experimental basis, some of the companies are tied up with some of the R&D players for fuels and the green hydrogen projects as well. On the refining side, green ammonia continues to be a key focus areas for most of the companies. And lastly, as one of the panelists rightly mentioned, including Mr. Atul, where the oil and gas company will look at how the blending mix can be improvised so that we look at more sustainable kind of an fuel mix.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Let me get Mr. Pandey. Again, very, very concisely, what is your outlook in terms of what you see in your sector? You've spoken on length about policy support, right of way. But how positive are you, regarding your sector?
Pardon, Shilpa, can you just repeat last part of?
Yeah. So, how positive are you with regards to the sector that you are in?
So, as I said, Shilpa earlier, natural gas is something which is being looked at, because when you migrate or when you actually transition from the traditional fuels towards renewable fuel, including hydrogen or solar, or so if you talk about, for example, total solar or wind energy, I think storage has been a challenge, and where now we are also talking about the peaking power requirement getting bridged by the natural gas operated plants. Similarly, when you talk about cleaner fuel like hydrogen and CBG, of course, Atul talked about. CBG currently is being injected into the, or being injected or being planned to inject into more in the city gas networks. Wherein globally, if you see, the CBG is something which also gets transported through the transmission pipelines. Now, these fuels combined with the natural gas, we firmly believe that natural gas will have a significant share of the energy basket over the next decades when we start actual transitioning towards the clean fuels. And in that sense, I would say that whether all these stakeholders, whether it is the investors, operators, the dependent customers, as well as the EPC companies and the regulator and government, there is a need to comprehensively evaluate how the whole thing will get integrated in terms of different. And Atul talked about that. I think all the fuels going forward, it's not that it's only competition or taking one fuel place of another. Everything will have its own place, and in that sense, a holistic view needs to be taken, and accordingly, policies will need to be framed in a manner that every individual fuel should not get threatened or should not take a backseat going forward, because that might create a rather than a positive ushering, it might create something which will have a negative connotation. So so that's it. I would say that as far as sector wise, if you talk about the natural gas sector overall, it will have it will have a positive growth, as well as will be a significant part of energy mix.
Sure. Now I'll get Mr. Rahman. Your view on the expansion of value chain in renewable energy, the domestic production side, as well as the private sector's view on sort of the investment that is likely to come when it comes to all forms of newer technologies, be it green hydrogen, be it carbon capture, be it maybe even small modular reactors. What's your view?
Yeah, I think when it comes to renewable energy generation and having the renewable electricity coming from the renewable energy and getting evacuated, transmitted, delivered to the industry infrastructure or societal use, that's for sure it will be there, because there is a need. Because everybody has today, if you see whether country point of view, yes, we have declared 2070 as a carbon neutral target, and also the 2030 target we have 500 gigawatts. But also a lot of industries, they have already announced 2050, 2035 as a carbon neutral. I think the entire ecosystem will need this renewable energy. So either directly for the electricity, or even coming to the green hydrogen. I think green hydrogen story is all about the economy of scale. And so you just, produce renewable energy in tens of gigawatts, and then you have the electrolyzer plant, and then you produce green hydrogen, and you can export it, you can transport it, you can use it for storage. So I think that will definitely play. And we know that in many private sectors today in India, they have really set up gigawatt scale of electrolyzer plants and also the renewable energy to produce green hydrogen. And electric vehicle side, we do see that there is a surge of electric vehicles, be it public vehicle, four-wheeler, three-wheeler, two-wheeler, that's also going on. I think what's going to happen is it's all about not only the technology innovation, as I said, technology is there, whether it's long distance transmission of electricity, HVDC technology, the flexible AC transmission technology, the storage technology. But in addition to technology innovation, I think the business model innovation also has to work, because here it's not about renewable energy. With renewable energy also now is coming the need for reactive power. That has to be also provided by the IPPs, the power produces. That's a cost. Then the storage also will come into picture. So then it has to be an integrated costing mechanism and also the business model which can make it viable. I'm sure it will happen because I mean we need not look for policy first. I think what we are seeing today that it's starting and then there are some guidelines and then the policies coming later based on the feedback, based on the suggestion from the industries, from the private, from the public sectors. I think this will be a concurrent kind of approach to achieve the renewable energy, the green energy, and also the carbon neutral target. And technology is there, innovation is there. I think a business model, and I also heard that the capital is also there. It's all about how we integrate them nicely to make it more accountable and also accountable from the point of view of sustainability as well as finance. So I think that's something we are seeing very positive move now.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Coming to Anil, Anil, again, quickly, you had spoken about carbon credits. I would like to understand from you that we have an ongoing carbon market which is being worked upon. There's been a framework that is being worked upon as well. So what is your view regarding that? And second, I would like you to touch upon resource adequacy, which has been talked about for some time. And of course, you wanted to talk about, the efficient appliances. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Things are many. I will be short in telling all those things, and because I understand time constraints. So actually, carbon market is very much open to us just because that energy efficient, already developed nations and they have already gone to such a point that adopting more efficiency and getting into their target nationally determined commitments is going to be difficult for them. So, and India plays a very vital role because India is growing also, energy requirement is also growing. So, application of energy efficient appliance straight away is more feasible in India. So, so whenever there is a change from business as usual, the carbon market comes into the play. So the scope is there. The challenge is that whenever we go for the carbon credit assessment and then we have to see how we are using it, the time of use and duration of use that is to be quantified, ascertained. That cannot be just based on the assumption. Let's say some technology has been adopted, energy efficient motor has been deployed in any industry, but if it is not getting used, so carbon credits are not getting assigned to that. So that kind of monitoring is required when we go for the such kind of uses. So these are the challenges when we go for the, but the way things are coming up, IoTs are coming up, monitoring is getting more and more easier. So this market will also get strengthened. And various kinds of, actually EESL is bringing up various kinds of initiatives in various appliances. And I will tell about this. Let's say if you are going for the cooling space is already telling that India cooling requirement is going to be almost double in what we are having now. Let's say if our AC requirement into to whatever it was in 21-22, I think 9 billions of ACs were required. So now it will be going to be double in by 2028. So the cooling requirement is rapidly changing, and this cooling and by 2030, all kinds of cooling requirements is going to get doubled because India is the cooling needs are getting increased. So our ACs have to be very efficient. All appliances are to be very efficient. So these are the things. Actually, Bureau of Energy Efficiency has already brought in various kinds of star labeling. So if the 5-star labeling AC you are procuring, then it has got ISAA 5.0. EESL is all the time trying to bring in better efficient ACs. So so now it is initially when 5-star rating was 4.5, EESL has gotten 5.0. ISEE rating. Now EESL has brought in 5.8 and 6.2 ISEE rating. So in the due course of time, now these ACs will become order of the day. So India will become efficient in air conditioning. We are aiming to go for the 7.2 ISEE rating. Today's 5-star rating is 5.0. We are aiming to go to 7.2. So 5-star rating will also change in the due course of time. So that is how we are increasing the efficiency market. And this efficiency market is literally a market. Means when we are going to invest, adopt new technology, it requires investment and there is energy saving. So invest in the various sectors. If we go in the quantified term, around in various kinds of calculations are there, which suggest that around 10 lakh crores of investment is required by 2031. So that much amount of money, and the saving of what in the energy efficiency market, energy efficiency and energy conservation. So if what will the saving? Saving will be 6.3 lakh crores, equivalent saving of the energy. That will be the saving of 6.3 lakh. Means payback period is less than 1.5 years. 10 lakhs investment, 10 lakh crore. But this 10 lakh crore investment, how it is possible? So that is where the investment, technology investors, everything comes, and ESL has to grow 100 times, and 100 times 100 such ESLs has to be formed in. So ESL is going to adopt a role of super ISCO. So that is kind of the market scenario, the potential, and everything is there. So if we, actually India is looked upon that if India energy efficiency scenario and climate change commitments are met, the world will win. So if India wins, world will win.
Sure.
For that, ESL is putting all the effort. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Choudhary. Actually, what I can say from our conversation is that huge potential, a lot of room for everybody to grow. A lot is happening in the sector when it comes to domestic production of equipment, or be it green hydrogen, be it the transport segment of green hydrogen and natural gas. I think there is potential and room for everybody, all kinds of resources to grow as well. And on that note, while we do see that things are happening on the ground, some push is still needed. A lot of things are still happening. Some policies have worked really well, and perhaps we have still a long way to go. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody. Our time's up, but I would have loved to continue this session because it's very, very interesting. And, there are so many topics to touch upon, but all of you have given such wonderful insights. I think this has been one of the most, I would say, diverse opinions that I have come across in any, such sort of conference or webinar. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your outlook.